collage of different kinds of
I'm a
music.
composer.
It's like,
I'm a composer of electronic music, and I compose political music, and I'm still living. The question is how.
Hello everyone. I'm very happy to be invited to participate in this Q&A regarding the film about İlhan Mimaroğlu. And I think for all of you who will stay and see the film later, it's a very special documentary. So if somebody doesn't know or know, this composer, Turkish-American composer, was very important for the, let's say, dissemination of the avant-garde in the 70s up till beginning of the 80s. He worked in New York. He moved, I think, in '59 to United States, and from that moment on, he was active on two fronts. One was contemporary composition, but in contemporary composition that wasn't, let's say, academic contemporary composition. He worked in the field of electronic music, in the field of tape music, and experimental music, and spoken word, all that combined. And the other thing he did, he was a music producer associated with Atlantic Records. And what is most important, the sub-label Finada Records he curated for, and it's a very important label that actually introduced into America some of the things that were happening in European avant-garde, and of course had some fantastic special editions of Varese, of Jean Dubuffet music that nobody knew that he created. Also, he worked with a famous Turkish pianist İlhan Mimaroğlu. So it was a very interesting thing he did for others. So after the actually crash of this sub-label in the beginning of '80s, his music production somehow ceased, and he kind of concentrated himself to one other type of medium, and that was film and photography. So the first question we always have in these Q&As is for every director is how you came to this idea to make the film, because this is important to set the context, and then we will probably go more deeply into questions about Mimaroğlu.
Yeah. First of all, I'm a very old reader of Norient website, and I learned a lot of things from Norient website. So showing our film on this festival is very important for me on Norient. Actually, I'm come from film industry. I worked as an editor in chef and film critic in film press and film industry. But also I am a big lover of electronic music, contemporary music, experimental sounds. So after we lost him, he died in New York in 2012. I waited that someone will make a film about him, a documentary about him, or maybe a book or a documentary, but nobody wrote anything or shoot anything about him. So then I met Güngör Mimaroğlu, and she motivated me to make a film about İlhan Mimaroğlu. In first step, I was thinking to make a film about İlhan Mimaroğlu, but then Güngör Mimaroğlu returned to her own country, to Turkey, and we started to visit her in her home. Then I changed my project because I discovered that their stories are interwoven, and you can't make a film about İlhan or Güngör. You have to make a film about the couple. So then I listened to her. We visited her every week. Then I wrote a script for a documentary. for 3 stories: a story of İlhan, a story of Güngör, and the story of stepson. Then we shoot it.
Yeah, we spoke earlier a bit, but it was one of the most precious things in your documentary is that it's actually a story about the couple, and that we see, and that's rare actually in my experience as a musicologist, that you see a wife also as a subject, as a person with her own story, her own political will, her own let's say radical life, because this life is not it's not something that most of the women in that time lived, I think, nor in Turkey nor in other parts of the world. And that you see that there is not only the genius composer, but there is something else around him. And I think it's a very, very precious thing that we can see in this movie, because usually we don't see it. We know it, but we don't see it. It's always this, let's say, the problem Anna Magdalena Bach, who always stays somewhere in a background. But Güngör is not like that, I think.
I've seen a lot of films about the great artists that all of time their wives and their partners are in the shadows. I think why Dilek accepted to work with me, that because I told her that I want to make a film about the composer and her wife, and I want to make a story, a life story, a love story, a radical love story. I told her I will want to make a film about the love between a couple and between a radical arts
ruh ikizi derler, bir şey vardı. Biz hepsi miydik, neydik bilmiyorum.
Radical politics, yeah. Sen eklemek ister misin?
When Serdar first talked about this film, when he first mentioned this film, he said, I want to make this unconventional documentary about this composer, but I also want to include his wife into it. And of course, from all this experience of watching all those other films that you also mentioned, I had questions in my mind about how are we going to present this woman, Is she going to be only a tool? Is she going to be only a simple element of this man's life and creativity? But he said, no, I don't want to portray her like that. I actually know that she's very important in this relationship. And she also defined a lot of things in this relationship, because of her desire to be free, her desire in freedom, her outspokenness, her radicalness, her approach in politics, and that she's not a conventional woman, not a conventional wife, also defined all this relationship, especially their life in New York. So I was actually sold with this. Okay, let's do this, because it's definitely going to be something different than what we've seen so far. So it was really a very important point for me.
I suppose that one of the things that Mimaroğlu had very defined in his work, and actually a bit sets him apart from other avant-garde musicians of the time, is his political outspokenness, not only, verbally, but in his work too. And I think that this political aspect, maybe I'm wrong, also is very related to Güngör. So it's not that, he probably had this same impulse, but there is a certain symbiosis there. But anyways, I wanted to say that if you could also comment on this political part of his work that is always that is actually a left-wing ideology, and that he was also critical of the things that were happening also in Turkey during the 70s, and the things that were happening in America. Working also with Freddie Hubbard, they were addressing the Vietnam things and other stuff. So I suppose that did you feel the relation there? Because I think this is also something that we as people from 30, younger, could actually make a connection with. This political thing is very powerful in his work, for example.
Mhm. It's something.
Yeah, I think İlhan is coming from a very intellectual background, and Turkey had always been a very political country, and especially if you're someone who is reading, who is interested in what's going on, you're, naturally very political, you're very into politics. I don't think İlhan's interest in politics is only coming from Güngör.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, especially in their time in New York, Güngör's very presence in activism and in political discourse.
composer.
It must have
That's one
influenced
suicide.
İlhan.
Mhm.
I am a
More
contemporary
like political
composer,
speeches
so that's two.
in his work, and
I'm a composer
using
of
all the
electronic music,
statements and
that's
stuff.
three.
I don't think
And I
İlhan
compose
was
political
an
music, that's
apolitical
four.
person at any time
And
in
I'm
his
still
life.
living.
No.
The
I'm
question
sure
is how.
Güngör's approach in politics and her activism influenced him.
Influenced him, yeah. Because in the 60s he was playing with electronic sounds, and I think Güngör's activist life impressed him. Then he started to make some political collages, because his political collages were a collage of both electronic sounds, jazzy sounds, and also some political poems, manifestations. Yeah.
Yes, his collages. This is what is fantastic, actually, that he did this fantastic tape collages. Actually, that he was really a wizard with tapes. Of course, he used the synthesizers and synthesizer sounds, and I find it quite refreshing to hear the synthesizer and the jazz together. Yes, in Freddie Hubbard recordings, but. His collages, this I have to see, because like this agitprop pieces that he did is really something that you see that he uses this medium so well. Of course, working with magnetic tape music is always a collage sort of a world of collages. So I was wondering whether did you see the relationship between the magnetic tape, like a sound medium, and afterwards when he kind of turned to film and photography? It's a different kind of tape, but it's still the tape. And were you also kind of been inspired, because the film is also a little bit collagey and poetical in this sort of way?
Yeah, we asked these questions to David Tup when we visit him in London, and I asked him what makes İlhan Mimaroğlu original in music history, why he's so unique, and he told us because he is one of the first artists accepted these tapes, magnetic tapes, in a political sense. And I think it was a new thing, and with these tapes become a political thing in his hands. Yeah.
And he's like, of course, he's being fed by the zeitgeist of he's in, but at the same time, you're right, definitely. I feel like he's very interested in this, tapes, when it comes to his footage also, because as you said, we also use a lot of his own videos, his own footage he did, and this was all 8mm films, Super 8 films, and he was editing himself while shooting. He was actually shooting this and then shooting that. He was having this collage even within a reel, and he's saying music is a cinematographic thing.
Yes,
so
yes.
He sees this sound and visuals and sound and images as if it's something that he can easily manipulate, and he wants to manipulate it. Of course, it's reflected on our film as well. While we were watching all his footage, all the things that he did, he photographed, he shot on 8mm, he shot on high 8, high 8 tapes. We were inspired by this a lot. We wanted to somehow reflect on this collage that we had, you know, like hundreds of reels and lots of hours, like how many hours, I don't remember even. Maybe even 70 hours or something of material, you know. So he naturally he also inspired us with his own collages.
We wanted to catch his spirit in our film. You know, the feeling of these collages. So sometimes the critics or friends say, your film is like a collage, then these thoughts makes us happy. Very happy.
Well, yes, but it is. I think somewhere in the beginning of the movie, there is this sentence that music is the cinema for the ear, and of course, when you if you would listen to his collages, you know, without the previous knowledge of his work, you will say, oh, this is very radiophonic, because radiophonic pieces usually follow this logic of, you know, voices, the multiplication of voices, the stereo, the panning, the things like that. And so he used all of these elements, and so he was creating something very visual, very narrative in a sense. So this is what I think was very beautifully done in your movie, with a very nice, actually, let's say, marriage between the sound world of İlhan and the images. So it's very, again, very precious, not always easy to find this sort of, that somebody who made the movie was really thinking also through the sound itself. So it's not something that you just put on, but it's an integral part of the documentary. And so can you tell me, where did you find all this archival material, all these reels, and how was this process going?
It's a big story. I will start and you continue. In our first New York visit, we met Arthur, one of our heroes. He was a collector and archivist of the family, and he shared this archive with us. But Güngör told us nothing about this huge archive, so it was a surprise for us. And it wasn't easy to collect them and to carry in Istanbul.
Yeah, she probably even forgot that İlhan had so many.
Also, it was a surprise for her.
Because, you know, after İlhan's death, Arthur Fournier came to the house to collect everything and to categorize, and so that, you know, they know what İlhan Mimaroğlu had. Columbia University bought most of the things that he owned, and some private person bought most of his record collection. But then these images, these 8mm films, some tapes, videotapes, were somehow not taken. It was it stayed with Arthur. And then in our first visit, we met him, and then on a dinner table, it was the last night that we were there. The next morning, we were flying back to Istanbul. And he blurted that he had all these 8mm films. And we were like, what do you have? You have 8mm films, and how many? And he said, I don't know, it's a full box of films.
More than 100.
No one wanted it, but I keep it because, you know, I was the collector, I was the archivist. And then we said, okay, you have to give that to us. And then he said, I mean, I can't just give that to you. Of course, I mean, you have to have something with you. And
show me something.
Yeah, just as a producer's reflex, I had brought a paper from Güngör. I know this crew, this person. Please give them whatever you have. They might use everything for this documentary, something like that. You know, I got this release form from Güngör, and he actually went back, and I sent it from WhatsApp. I sent to Arthur from WhatsApp. You know, I have this, and then he said, "Okay, come and take everything." And it was morning. We went there with Uber, and then we brought everything, and we carried it like, you know, this.
You carried everything.
Yeah, it was such a funny thing. And then, of course, we didn't know that we would use these. We were shooting things, we were planning other things, And then this huge collection, this huge archive appeared. And the more we watched it, the more we digitized it, we saw that it is so unique, it is so important. We need to use it.
We were thinking, how can we tell this story without talking heads?
This was his first thing.
Yeah, it was my first rule for me.
Yeah, he said, even in our very first meeting, I think you said, I don't want to use talking heads. And I said, great idea, but we have to shoot everything.
By the way, we shoot everything.
Yeah.
We had all the talking heads. But we will use them. We are working on an archive site for the film. It's like a second step for us. And we will use them in the website.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, because...
You'll see people.
Yeah, because I was wondering whether did you just had audio interviews with people, or you actually you had talking heads that were just hidden behind. I mean that weren't shown, because that was I was wondering whether you had from the beginning the idea of not having talking heads and just playing the like David Toop or somebody, but okay, yeah, it's better like that, because I think it's your documentary works much better without talking heads.
I think Ilhan's footages, I think it really feeds the whole film. Like you know, it speaks to the audience even better than what we would use. We actually use some of the things we shot ourselves in New York. Some of the images, not everything belongs to Ilhan, but we shot most of the interviews. You had also a few sound interviews, I think, right? I mean, maybe 85-90% we shot everything, because we always had a camera person with us. We always had a sound person with us. So we shot everything. But at the end, for the film, this was much better, not using...
Yes, but so during the I mean, did you have some in the process of making documentary? Did you have some like first version, the second, third, or
how many?
Because I understood it's very common when you're making documentary to make to actually, you know, kind of like a sculpture when you finally come to the final.
Yeah. Also, what was interesting was our editing process wasn't long enough, because it was in Berlin, and it wasn't easy for us to make it in Berlin. We edited the first cut only in 1.5 months. Yeah, 1.5 months.
2 weeks in Istanbul, 4 weeks in Berlin. 4 weeks in Berlin.
And then I show it to my producers in Turkey. Then we continued online with my editor for some touches. Then the final version came.
And while making a documentary, in order to apply funds, in order to get funds, you have to create some versions, like 3-minute version, 10-minute version, 20-minute version. I think until you started to work with the whole material, we were doing so many different things. We were trying out things. We were trying out even recreations. You know, we shot some other materials. But then I think working on Ilhan's footage was serving best for the whole story.
Yeah, also when in the editing process, some radio recorders came very late to us. Yeah. A friend discovered some tapes on his cellar. Somehow. Then shared with us, digitalized and shared with us, but we put them into film maybe before ending it.
Yeah, and some of the very critical ones. So it really changed the course of the film, actually.
So I mean, this is one question. So Ilhan, in his he also worked on the radio. He had a radio show Isn't it not? Yeah. Can you tell us more about that part? I mean, wasn't just about on music. It was, or he had some commentaries also.
Yeah, it was about everything, you know, about music, contemporary music, electronic music, and about history, about literature, especially Turkish literature. Yes, it was very, very, very rich experience.
And as crazy as İlhan, he was actually recording everything. He was recording all his interviews, all his radio shows, and he even started to send out audio letters, you know, which was very useful for us. And he's, you know, labeling everything and keeping everything, but some of the things somehow were lost after his death, you know, because
of this. But now with this archives, where this footage will be with this archivist, or maybe somewhere else? Or...
No, it will be with us.
Yeah.
With you.
But Güngör and Rüstem will decide of their futures.
Yeah, but we're also, you know, we digitize everything. At least we have all the digitized version. So far, we are also holding all the physical films, but we are also sharing it with visual artists. We are saying we are assigning 8mm reels, digitized versions, to visual artists so that they can work with a musician. Sometimes if they don't have a musician to work with, we are assigning them a musician, and they are doing a video with it, and then the musician makes music. So we call it remix project.
It's like a side project of the documentary, a Mimaroğlu video remix project. We work with very important video artists and musicians, local musicians, and they are still waiting. We don't know still where will we show them.
But that's very interesting, because and very important, because I think that this will be my question, is how with your documentary did some kind of new interest in his work and some contemporary things with his work will be happening, you know, because I think it's the first documentary on him, and I suppose it would be also nice to have a live your documentary and other things around Mimaroğlu. So you say that you have this project ready, so it's
we actually started it while during production. We started slowly. I think we have now 10 projects in this branch, in this other thing, but we just wanted to tell that, you know, we are not keeping all this archive to us, you know, we are ready to share it with people. If someone else wants to make another Mimaroğlu documentary focusing on another aspect, we are more than happy to share what we collected so far. So we have to open, we have to, you know, sharing is caring. So
I think it's
like this idea.
But I think it's a good idea, because in a sense it brings the poetic justice, in the sense he wanted to be in his prime. He wanted to do this for the contemporary composers, so they to be in the center and to be a part of the work, and he didn't want the academic you know, ideas on one thing, and this kind of sacralization of the, you know, of the musealization of music, let's say, call it like that. And so it would be a pity if he gets now to be just musealized, actually archivized, and nothing else will happen. I think that this part of his you know, creative spirit has to kind of live on, because if we, especially so, if we understand the tape music or what he did is actually fixed, so it's a fixed medium, so we have to give all of that to somebody new to make something out with it, because it's not an open form.
It gives a new life to this archive.
Yes. So actually, it's somehow I'm going now to wrap this. I think we have I mean, ask most of the questions. I mean, we can go now to really details about his work, and maybe that will be also the question where he was drawing his inspiration from. I mean, to tell us about this literal side of his inspiration, the poets, the texts, maybe about that which you encountered.
Nasıl ilhamlar vardı? Neler ilham vardı ona?
I think what makes him as a rich artist is he both lived in New York and Istanbul. He was like a multicultural person because he learned a lot of things from the art scene of New York. For example, the electronic music studios. Also, he was at the same time he was very close to the political developments of Turkey, literature, the political poets. So yeah.
Even in his music, I think he combines this hybridity. He uses his life around New York, but he also uses political statements from Turkey, because it was Vietnam, it was liberation, blah blah, in 60s, 70s in New York, but it was also coup d'etat and in Turkey. So he's always mixing all these things. I totally agree. I think because of his, he was born here, he was raised here, but he had the means to move there and to find another life here. I think it really
also it's a good thing if you're a sound collage artist.
Yeah, exactly. To get everything.
To get everything to put into.
And he also lived in Paris for a while.
Yeah,
right?
for a year.
And he couldn't stand the sounds of Paris. So yes, okay. Thank you. We're around time. We're allocated. I hope that people will be encouraged to see your movie, and I'm just recommending everyone to kind of go and see and find out about İlhan Mimaroğlu and Güngör Mimaroğlu too. Thank you.